VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
Well, thank you, Mr. Morris. It's time for Crosstalk, and each day we have the privilege of visiting with you on various topics. And I'll be honest with you, both Jim and I work to try to provide good information to each and every one of you as you listen. There are times when, well, I've said it, and I'm not trying to be funny, but I feel like the inmates have taken over the asylum. I've said that before. It's not original with me, but the problem, I think, is obvious. How many of you remember, not too many days back, months back, weeks back, when the National Day of Prayer was considered and held, and the aloof and rather chilly reaction to it from the president? He made the proclamation, but there was no doings in the White House, not at all. Now, this is a man that claims to be a Christian. But there was no recognition of it in the White House, aside from the mandatory proclamation that was required by law. And how many of us have heard over and over the statement from Mr. Obama that he is a Christian? And, of course, he talks about the importance of our faith. But whenever, some of the videos go way back to the time when Mr. Obama first was elected. And there were big questions then as to whether he was, in fact, a Christian or that he was a Muslim. Big questions, wondering if this, in fact, is the case. Now, there are many people that say, well, we've just got to give him the benefit of the doubt because he says that I'm a Christian. Well, the word Christian today has become so used and abused. It's been used almost like a fragrance or a flavor or a cultural definition, something you paint on with a brush or you put on with a certain flair, and you say, well, I am a Christian. Well, the first time the word was used was in Antioch. They were first called Christians in Antioch. Remember that? And it wasn't because they were of a political party. It wasn't because it was the way they lived. You'll know they are Christians by their love. Their love, first of all, for God and for the Savior. And then it reflects down to our brother and those around us. So what does it mean for the president of our country to say that he is a Christian? Well, he indicated that it was not important enough to have an official doings at the White House. However, just 10 days ago, Friday evening, August 10th, the President of the United States, Mr. Obama, hosted his fourth Iftar, now that's I-F-T-A-R, Iftar dinner as president. Now, this was held in the state dining room of the White House. And the Iftar is the meal that breaks the day of fasting during Ramadan, when Muslim families and communities eat together after sunset. Now, if you doubt my words, I want you to listen to this audio clip, because here you hear the man who would not have any recognition. Oh, yes, he did sign the declaration of the Day of Prayer, but that was it. But this is what happened in the White House. It's about 8 minutes. I want you to listen carefully.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the White House. Of all the freedoms we cherish as Americans, of all the rights that we hold sacred, foremost among them is freedom of religion, the right to worship as we choose. It's enshrined in the First Amendment of our Constitution, the law of the land, always and forever. It beats in our heart, in the soul of the people who know that our liberty and our equality is endowed by our Creator. and it runs through the history of this house, a place where Americans of many faiths can come together and celebrate their holiest of days, and that includes Ramadan. As I've noted before, Thomas Jefferson once held a sunset dinner here with an envoy from Tunisia, perhaps the first Iftar at the White House more than 200 years ago. And some of you, as you arrived tonight, may have seen our special display, courtesy of our friends at the Library of Congress, the Quran that belonged to Thomas Jefferson. And that's a reminder, along with the generations of patriotic Muslims in America, that Islam, like so many faiths, is part of our national story. This evening, we're honored to be joined by members of our diplomatic corps, members of Congress, including Muslim American members of Congress, Keith Ellison and Andre Carson, as well as leaders from across my administration. And to you, the millions of Muslim Americans across our country, and to the more than 1 billion Muslims around the world, Ramadan Kareem. Now, every faith is unique, and yet during Ramadan we see the traditions that are shared by many faiths. Believers engaged in prayer and fasting, in humble devotion to God, families gathering together with love for each other, neighbors reaching out in compassion and charity to serve the less fortunate. People of different faiths coming together, mindful of our obligations to one another, to peace, justice, and dignity for all people, men and women. Indeed, you know that the Quran teaches, be it man or woman, each of you is equal to the other. And by the way, we've seen this in recent days. In fact, the Olympics is being called the year of the woman. Here in America, we're incredibly proud of Team USA, all of them, but we should notice that a majority of the members are women. Also, for the very first time in Olympic history, every team now includes a woman athlete. And one of the reasons is that every team from a Muslim majority country now includes women as well. And more broadly, it's worth applauding. Absolutely. More broadly, we've seen the extraordinary courage of Muslim women during the Arab Spring. Women right alongside men taking to the streets to claim their universal rights, marching for their freedom, blogging and tweeting and posting videos, determined to be heard, in some cases facing down tanks and braving bullets, enduring detentions and unspeakable treatment, and at times giving their very lives for the freedom that they seek, the liberty that we are lucky enough to enjoy here tonight. Now, these women have inspired their sisters and daughters, but also their brothers and their sons, and they've inspired us all. Even as we see women casting their ballots and seeking standing for office in historic elections, we understand that their work is not done. They understand that any true democracy must uphold the freedom and rights of all people and all faiths. We know this too, for here in America we're enriched by so many faiths, by men and women, including Muslim American women. There are young people, like the student who wrote me a letter about what it's like to grow up Muslim in America. She's in college. She dreams of a career in international affairs to help deepen understanding between the United States and Muslim countries around the world. So if any of the diplomatic corps have tips for her, she says that America has always been the land of opportunity for me, and I love this country with all my heart. And so we're glad to have Hala Beg here today. They are faith leaders like Sana Nadim, one of the first Muslim chaplains at an American college, a voice for interfaith dialogue, who's had the opportunity to meet with the Pope to discuss these issues. We're very proud to have you here. They are educators like Aisha Muhia, born in Afghanistan, who fled with her family as refugees to America, and now, as a language teacher, helps open her students to new cultures. So we're very pleased to have her here. They are entrepreneurs and lawyers, community leaders, members of our military, and Muslim American women serving with distinction in government. And that includes a good friend, Uma Abedin, who has worked tirelessly. Worked tirelessly in the White House and the U.S. Senate, and most exhaustingly at the State Department, where she has been nothing less than extraordinary in representing our country and the democratic values that we hold dear. Senator Clinton has relied on her expertise, and so have I. The American people owe her a debt of gratitude because Uma is an American patriot and an example of what we need in this country. More public servants with her sense of decency, her grace, and her generosity of spirit. So on behalf of all Americans, we thank you so much. These are the faces of Islam in America. These are just a few of the Muslim Americans who strengthen our country every single day. This is the diversity that makes us Americans, the pluralism that we will never lose. And at times, we have to admit that this spirit is threatened. We've seen instances of mosques and synagogues, churches and temples being targeted. Tonight, our prayers in particular are with our friends and fellow Americans in the Sikh community. We mourn those who were senselessly murdered and injured in their place of worship. And while we may never fully understand what motivates such hatred, such violence, the perpetrators of such despicable acts must know that your twisted thinking is no match for the compassion and the goodness and the strength of our united American family. So tonight we declare with one voice that such violence has no place in the United States of America. The attack on Americans of any faith is an attack on the freedom of all Americans. And no American should ever have to fear for their safety in their place of worship, and every American has the right to practice their faith both openly and freely and as they choose. That is not just an American right, it is a universal human right. And we will defend the freedom of religion here at home and around the world. And as we do, we'll draw on the strength and example of our interfaith community, including the leaders who are here tonight. So I want to thank all of you for honoring us with your presence, for the example of your lives, and for your commitment to the values that make us one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless you. God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Well, there you heard it. The voice of the President of the United States, recognizing with great emphasis a tribute to Islam. And yet when the National Day of Prayer came along for Christians all over the nation, there was only a proclamation required by law and not one function within the White House. Now, folks, this is going to be interesting because there's some people that were mentioned here in this particular statement, these statements that the President made, which are not just strangers to some of the things that have been going on. So I want you to stick with us here. Keep a pencil handy, and if we give you some statistics, at least you'll know where to find them. But today we're going to be asking some questions as what in the world is going on and where are we going as a nation? We shall be right back.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, scientist with the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, what's the latest on dinosaur studies?
Chris, there's always something new with dinosaurs. Here's something. We've always thought that the dinosaurs were rather slow-growing, like large reptiles of today, but a recent analysis of dinosaur bone tissue has called that idea into question. Some researchers are now insisting that the dinosaurs were rather rapid growers, like mammals, reaching their adult size in several growth spurts. Obviously, this is not something that's known, but it does seem to fit the evidence. It also fits the biblical idea of God having created each basic category of animal to live and survive in the world after Adam's sin had caused its ruin. Dinosaurs, I suppose, are one of the very harshest aspects of that post-curse world. At least that's the way I see it from a back-to-Genesis perspective.
Receive our free booklet called Dinosaurs and the Lost World when you request it by calling 1-800-7-GENESIS.
No new title here, but somebody coined this phrase, the Islamification of America. Nothing new. It's been said before, and I'm not trying to capitalize on an interesting title. But what we're hearing and seeing, you say, well, would that just have been the president? Perhaps. Now, bear in mind, folks, this didn't just start with President Obama. No, this actually started, the Iftar dinners, started way back with Bill Clinton. That's right. It didn't just start now. It started with Bill Clinton, and then, would you believe, George W. Bush carried on the tradition with the Iftar dinners. He did, however, have a recognition of the day of prayer as well. But carrying this, we can't say that it just goes back to that point in time. But I'm holding in my hands an interesting thing that just 2 years ago, Falls Church, Virginia reports, Secretary of Homeland Security, Janet Napolitano, today, now this is datelined August 14th. That's just a few days ago. She hosted the second annual Department of Homeland Security Iftar dinner, bringing together Muslim community leaders, international partners, and federal and state local officials. And here was the statement: communities of faith have been one of our most steadfast allies in our efforts to secure our nation and combat violent extremism, said Secretary Napolitano. DHS is committed to continuing to work with these communities to address threats that endanger the safety and security of our nation and all communities of faith. But do you notice again, it was not some ecumenical thing. And I'm not for ecumenism. No, not at all. Stirring up soup with a bunch of religion in there. I mean, John Marks Templeton, that was his goal years ago, putting together all the religions of the world and coming up with religion soup, I guess it was. And he'd made some big gifts. Yeah, he did. He made $1 million gift to Bill Bright of Campus Crusade. He made $1 million gift to Billy Graham. And Chuck Colson received $1 million gift from John Marks Templeton, who believed in just stirring it up in one stew, I guess you'd call it. But now we have a unique thing that it's Iftar that's getting the recognition. Iftar. But let's go back to that statement that was made by the president, because there was something that, well, there were like 40-some representatives, most of them His Excellency and the name of his country. There were all but 5 of them were excellent. The rest 4 were honorable. But they were there. But it's interesting to find out that the statement that was made in the president's his statement, it had to do with, well, you recall who it was that she was talking about? Uma Abedin? Ring any bells? Oh, Uma Abedin. She is the assistant to Hillary Clinton. She is the one that, in fact, by the president's own statement, has given tremendous guidance to the people in the White House. But Uma Abedin has direct connections through her family to the Muslim Brotherhood. Doesn't that seem a little strange to you? Yeah. Indeed, you know that the Quran teaches, says President, it teaches, be it man or woman, each of you is equal to the other. But ladies and gentlemen, you know that Sharia law says that a woman who is accused of an immoral act and brought into justice, that her testimony is only worth 50% of the testimony of a man. So who's kidding who here? And what is this, truth, or is it confusion, or whatever? Now, the president said this: the entrepreneurs and lawyers and community leaders, members of our military, and the Muslim American women serving distinction in government, and that includes a good friend, Huma Abedin, who has worked tirelessly in the White House, in the U.S. Senate, and most exhaustingly at the State Department, where she has been nothing less than extraordinary in representing our country and the democratic values that we hold dear. Senator Clinton has relied on her expertise, and so have I. Huma is an American patriot and an example of what we need in this country. Now, those are the words that came directly from the lips of the president at the Iftar dinner at the White House. But bear in mind that the Muslim Brotherhood, deeply connected with what's happened in Egypt and the foreign countries where we're talking about the religion of peace, right? Well, let's look at how peaceful that religion is. The story is this. An 11-year-old girl thought to suffer from Down syndrome is facing the death penalty in Pakistan for apparently burning pages from the Quran. Furious mobs of Muslim locals gathered outside the home of Christian girl Rifta Masish after she was found with charred pages from the Islamic holy book. She was arrested and has been held in custody for the last 14 days under Pakistan's controversial blasphemy law. The conviction could see her executed. Now, some Muslims from the area claim that the girl had burned the pages of the Quran, and we were investigating and have not reached any conclusion, said the Pakistani police officer. They hadn't reached any conclusion. Another police official said that when the girl was brought to the police station, that she had a shopping bag that contained various religious and Arabic language papers that had been burned partly, but no Quran. So here we have an 11-year-old girl suffering from Down syndrome that's about to be executed by these people that stand for the religion of peace. Isn't that exciting? Well, you might say, Vic, I agree with you, or Vic, I think it's an outrage, and I do too. But let me tell you this connection with the Muslim Brotherhood and all of the stuff that's going on in our country, what does Tony Blair have to say? This man, of course, Prime Minister in England, the man who, well, here it is. Western democracies, let me correct that. Western democracies need to wake up. Now, these are his words. To wake up to the threat of Islamic extremism. Now, this is former Prime Minister Tony Blair said that. They need to wake up to the threat of Islamic extremism. He said that even after 9/11, he underestimated the power of the extremists, and he thinks their power has grown since then. Radical Muslims seek supremacy, not coexistence, Mr. Blair said, and he fears that the West is asleep on this issue, even though it is the biggest challenge. Would you believe Tony Blair says that the West is asleep? Now, this is kind of what the picture shows. Now, we were talking about Huma Abedin, her connection. Not just a nice lady that's working for Hillary Clinton. She is a person who has much deeper connections. In fact, as 5 House members continue to call for an investigation of Muslim Brotherhood influence on the federal government, a researcher who has documented numerous ties between Hillary Clinton's top aide and the global Islamic supremacist movement has found another connection. Huma Abedin, Clinton's deputy chief of staff, who is said to advise the Secretary of State on Middle East policy, and I will add, and the President, you heard him say it, was a member of the executive board of the Muslim Student Association, according to an archived web page discovered by researcher Waleed Shubat. Muslim Student Association, or MSA, was identified as a Muslim Brotherhood front group in 1991. the document introduced into evidence during a terror financing trial of the Texas-based Holy Land Foundation. So there you have it, folks. This is what's happening in our country. And we have our top leader. Well, he is being sued. For what results, I'm not sure. But President Barack Obama, whose administration is being sued by multiple Catholic dioceses and universities and charities and family-owned businesses for violating their First Amendment right to the free exercise of religion, told the group of Muslims dining at the White House that freedom of religion is foremost among God-given rights of man, and that he intends to defend it both within the United States and abroad. And so here we have a situation now, that is, unless you happen to claim that some of the things being forced upon them by the government violate their religious convictions. Tell you what, let's talk about it, folks. What do you think? Our phone number is 800-733-9829, and I'd like to find out your heartbeat on this. Again, your opinions are those of your own, and we would be happy to have you share them. Our telephone number again, 800-733-9829. Folks, you got to read the fine print. Huma Abedin. Interesting. Here she is in the White House, advising Hillary Clinton, advising President Barack Obama. I mean, it's like the CARE organization that sent VCY America a beautiful colored book on how we should address Islam. How the words to be used, the words not to be used, how to address Islam. And that book went to thousands of other radio stations, too, as we are told how to handle truth. Well, I wonder what you think. By the way, our lines are jammed right now, so if you're getting busy, it will be cleared as soon as we take our first call. But don't go away. We're going to be talking about this and other issues as we look at America and what you think about what we've shared just today. Is America becoming a Muslim nation? Is it the Islamification of the United States of America? Your opinions, please. Your thoughts, keep it brief and to the point. I'm sure there'll be a lot of people calling, but your call is most welcome. 800-733-9829. If you appreciate Crosstalk, take time to call your station managers and thank them, because they are the ones that provide the airtime for this program. We do not buy the time. We're here because they care. And so if you feel that this program is important and a blessing, call your station even today and thank them for the privilege of VCY America providing this program, okay? We'll be right back in 60 seconds.
The basis of scientific research is to find the truth, and scientists, of all people, are supposed to have open minds and be willing to look at all the evidence. However, history has told us that once an idea has become entrenched, even scientists find it difficult to accept anything that deviates from the idea. This is now the case with evolution, and the theory of evolution is now a dogma. Refuting evolution has now been taken to a new level. In the book, Evolution Impossible, Dr. John Ashton provides some of the most compelling and authoritative rebuttals of evolution today. Chapter by chapter, in straightforward language, he provides 12 compelling reasons why evolution is false. He uses discoveries in genetics, biochemistry, geology, radiometric dating, and other scientific disciplines to explain why the theory of evolution is but a myth. Evolution Impossible is available from VCY America for a donation of $17 or more by calling 1-800-729-9829. That's 1-800-729-9829.
And welcome back to Crosstalk, as we're going to be opening our lines here in a moment. They're all ringing and busy right now, and we're so glad that you called, but Just rehash this one other thing. We're talking about, of course, the religion of peace that's about to execute an 11-year-old girl facing the death penalty. This girl suffering from Down syndrome was carrying a shopping bag, and apparently somebody found a page from an Islamic holy book that had been apparently charred. Nobody's saying who burned it. In fact, they didn't even find a full Quran in there. But apparently the death penalty is the best that they can do for an 11-year-old girl. Well, one last thing. Now, this religion of peace thing and the Muslim Brotherhood, you might say, well, Vic, what difference does it make if Umma Abedin is connected to the Muslim Brotherhood? Well, she's also connected to the Secretary of State and the President of the United States. You heard it with your own ears. And I'm reading to you right now the Arab Spring, which was the great celebration there. In Egypt, as you saw, the big takeover, the change in leadership, and the Muslim Brotherhood was standing right there, ready to step in. Oh, they did. They did, and President Mohammed Morsi, the president, the newly installed president, and he is, of course, run by the Muslim Brotherhood. But they've started doing some interesting things there in Egypt. Now, bear in mind, this is the religion of peace. What they're doing, the radical Muslims have begun finding opponents of the newly installed president, and they are taking them and crucifying them. I didn't say verbal crucifixion. No, they are literally crucifying them on trees in front of the presidential palace and abusing others. Crucifying them, nailing them to trees, because they oppose the Muslim Brotherhood and their new leader, President Mohammed Morsi. Well, obviously the religion of peace is on its way. Sharia law. Well, I have a video that actually the man giving it comes right out and says that his intention is that Islam is to take over the United States and that Sharia law will be the law of the United States. And now this is coming from people within Islam. Not all of them are radical. Some of them just plain, that's what they believe. Well, let's go to the phones right now and talk with you. And Bayview, Wisconsin, and Mike, you are on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, Vic, that's going to happen here for sure. And that 11-year-old girl, who's to say that they didn't give her a bag full of his stuff just to get rid of her?
Could be.
And yeah, that 11-year-old girl, it's going to get executed for burning the Koran. Who's to say they didn't put it in her hand? Yeah. It's such a peaceful religion, all right. But
see, she was a Christian, or claimed to be a Christian. See,
okay. Well, they have to get rid of her then. And with our president and the White House and the homosexual agenda and the kissing up to the Muslim extremists and all of that, I mean, you can see where all this is going. I mean, that's why he just keeps kowtowing down to them.
Well, the situation, many of the Islamics, the conversation regarding homosexuality and Islam. And according to Sharia law, anyone caught in that scarlet sin is destined to be beheaded or killed in some particular way.
Yeah.
And so if those supporting Islam from that side of the world are in favor of Sharia law, you can expect what's going to be coming down the road.
Oh, yeah, that's for sure. I mean, we can blaspheme our holy God here, in our state parks, and it's, we can't do anything about it, and, we'd be judging others, and I mean, I've made so many phone calls, my head starts to spin, Vic.
Well, Mike, aside, and just going off on a quick rabbit trail, right here in Wisconsin at the Lapham Peak State Park, they are running throughout the end of this month a film, a play that is absolutely defamatory to the Word of God.
That's right.
It makes mockery of that. It's blasphemous. And the state just shrugs their shoulder. Well, we just have no control over what goes on.
Yeah, I tried to make all my phone calls to them. And
yet if you're carrying tracts down on the lakefront and you happen to give them out one by one, then you could get arrested for soliciting.
Yep, certainly.
Thanks so much, Mike. Appreciate the call from Bayview. Let's go to Germantown and talk with Claire. Claire, you're on the air.
Oh, Germantown. As I understand it, there's two big world organizations, the Bilderbergers in Germany and the Fabian Bunch in Jamaica.
Yeah.
I listen to public radio morning, noon, and night to see what's going on the other side. And lo and behold, they had Clinton on, and they said, well, do you see Hillary very often? Oh, yeah, weekends we go for strolls and movies. She just flew in from Jamaica. Uh-oh, there's the connection.
Thank you, Claire. Appreciate that. Comments, then again, on the weekends, kind of interesting. Thanks, Claire. Got to move ahead real quick. Lots of calls, 800-733-9829 in Milwaukee. Jacob, you're on the air.
Hi. I think we need to step back and look at the bigger picture here. The government who's behind the government, the bankers, the banking cartel, their modus operandi is to create a problem and then get a reaction from the public and then offer up a solution that the public normally wouldn't take unless they first had the problem to deal with. And that's exactly why the White House is giving deference and favor to these Muslim groups, is that they indeed want the exact kind of reaction that they're getting from you and other people so that they can foment and beat the war drums, so they can stir up war against Iran and other Muslim countries.
Okay, well, appreciate your comments, Jacob, but I think it's important that the American people be aware of what we're talking about, and I make no apology for providing this information at all. Holly in Venice, Florida. Holly, you're on the air.
Hi, I guess I have to disagree with the last caller a little bit. I feel like from the beginning when Obama was put into the presidency that there's been a lot of signs pointing towards a Muslim background. Mm-hmm. And, the dinner he had the other night is just another sign, and it makes a lot of sense. If the Muslims want to take over and rule the United States, they would try to get a president in there that's going to be leaning towards them. And I don't know of any other dinners he's had for any other religious groups other than the Muslims. And
no, there are coffee shop meetings around Washington, D.C., just down the street from the White House. And if I understand correctly, that coffee shop gets used a lot for meetings where no record is kept of the meetings.
No, I'm sure I've heard about it, too. Well, God bless you and your ministry. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Holly. Appreciate the call. Let's go to Hermiston. No, let's go to Charlie in Oregon. And Charlie, you're on the air. Hello, Charlie.
Yes. I don't know why people are so surprised about the Muslims lying and things, because in the Quran it says that it's honorable to lie to the infidel for the jihad and all, so they're gaining religious merit, and so they can lie with a straight face because it's part of their religion. And so right up to the highest offices in this country, with their ties to Islam, they can deny it, do whatever they want, and they're just gaining religious merit in the jihad.
Okay, thank you, Charlie. Appreciate those thoughts. And again, to the state of Oregon, Sue in Hermiston. Sue, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Hey, I don't think it's inmates that are running the White House anymore. I'm very serious about this, Brother Vic. We've got demons there. And I think as Christians, as we're praying for the freedom of our country and praying for the president, we also need to change our mode of prayer, because we need to buy every day that Jesus will allow us, and as he gives us the power to pray for this country, that another soul can be saved from hell.
Thank you, Sue. Well said. And we certainly do remember that this is a battle, spiritual as it is. Mobile, Alabama, and Joan. Hello, Joan.
Yes.
You're on the air.
Okay. The very first letter that Obama wrote when he got in, after he got in office, was to his friend in Iran, the president of Iran. It's on the internet, and you can pull it up. We pulled it up and copied it and read it. He's always said that the Muslim Brotherhood is good. And we get the Phyllis Schlafly reports every month since the late 80s. She says that the Muslim Brotherhood are eating in the White House with the family, but he won't let them sign the roster you're supposed to sign when you come to the White House.
Mm-hmm.
And, we are a Christian nation, and we need to take our nation back, and we have got to do a lot of praying. Because, it says we have freedom of religion. That's what he said a while ago, when he played the tape.
Yes.
But it's freedom of religion if you don't mention the name of Jesus.
Well said, Joan. Thank you from Mobile, Alabama. Let's go quickly to Brad in West Dallas. Break coming up shortly. Hi, Brad.
Hi, Vic. Two things. One, Obama was right about one thing, but he doesn't know why. Islam is a part of U.S. history, but it's in this way. 5 Muslim African nations were pirating our merchant vessels in the early 1800s, and we were paying tribute. Finally, we got enough of it and built a deep-water navy. That's the connection between Islam and what we are today. We have a deep-water navy, and that's where it started. So we could go over there and kick the tar out of them, which our Marines did. Secondly, if Obama says we're so equal and we treat everybody equally, then he might want to tell his people to get off of the necks of the Christian chaplains in the military who want to pray in Jesus' name.
Thank you, Brad. Appreciate the comment. May I just say this as we're coming up on the break? Folks, I was just listening to a news clip, watched it come across the wire, where the largest epidemic ever in the history of the United States Army, suicides. They said so far, I think this month, there were more people killed by suicide than they were casualties with the military action. Now, whether that was this month or the last several months, but the highest number. Despair. But remember this, of course, that the wings of the chaplains have been clipped. You dasn't bring a Bible over to Islamic country, and you can't read the 23rd Psalm, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. You can't talk about spiritual redemption through the blood of Christ. You can't quote John 3:16 because it might offend the Muslims. And we've got guys and gals that are dying with despair in the military, and that was news this week, that are perishing. And our chaplaincy has literally been so weakened by these declarations of tolerance that you dare not say anything that's spiritually encouraging because, oh goodness, could destroy somebody. And now we have the largest number ever in the history of the military that are committing suicide as they are there in these foreign countries because they are at despair. Just add that to the mix today as we're going up on a break here, and we'll be coming right back. And we have Chattanooga on the line, Grand Island, Nebraska. Don't go away. We'll be right back in just 60 seconds. And again, thanks for being with us today. Take a moment to call us at 800-733-9829. This is Crosstalk.
For the Worldview Weekend Minute, I'm Brennan House. Our website is worldviewweekend.com. Real spiritual warfare, what is it? It's not running around railing at demons, but destroying the lies raised up against the truth of God's Word. 2 Corinthians 10:3-5 declares, "For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war according to the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty in God for pulling down strongholds, casting down arguments, and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, bringing every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ." Real spiritual warfare is battling for the hearts and minds of people using biblical theology and doctrine, the truth of God's Word. That's what spiritual warfare is, proclaiming biblical truth, destroying arguments, philosophies, fables, ideas raised up against the principles of the Lord. It is not running around railing at demons, something even the angels don't do, according to Jude.
And welcome back to our final segment of Crosstalk today. Before we go back to the calls, let me just remind you that there are CDs available, these programs. These are unrehearsed. You're out there, you're talking, sharing with us, and we're so grateful for your statements as you call and talk with us as well. But may I say that the CDs are available. You simply call our main switchboard if you want a CD. That's 800-729-9829, and they're available for a nominal cost. If you'd like to download any of our Crosstalk programs, you can go to crosstalkamerica.com, crosstalkamerica.com, and you can click on the archives of any program that's out there and send the link to somebody else and share the program that way. Many times you have relatives in other parts of the country that don't hear the program on a network station, either our own network or the other affiliate networks. So just a hint to the wise is sufficient. Okay, let's go right now to Grand Island, Nebraska. And Bob, you have been so patient. Bob, go ahead.
Am I on?
You are on, Bob. Go ahead.
All right. Benjamin, when I first heard about Barack Obama, I asked myself, where did he come from? Who is he? When the book came out, where's the birth certificate? I read about that, and I've got a book here right in front of me right now. It says Infiltration, How Muslim Spies and Subversives Have Penetrated Washington. Every time Benjamin Netanyahu came, Obama gave him the cold shoulder. Not once has he been to Israel to call him brothers and sisters. A true Christian recognizes Israel as the God's chosen and as brothers and sisters. So I'll leave that with you. And like I said, this book was printed back in 2005, long before Obama came to power. But I got it because I knew that the Muslims were going to be our biggest problems.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that, Bob, from Grand Island, Nebraska. Also, as we take your call, please be sure once we go on the air, when you're talking to the call screener, then turn your radio completely off, and you'll still hear us. You'll be coming over the phone line, and so you'll hear us in real time. Let's go to, Heidi, or Haida, I believe it is, in Chattanooga, Tennessee. You're on the air.
Yes, hello. Thank you for taking my call.
Yes.
And thank you very, very much for keeping us informed as to what's going on that the media tries not to let us know about.
Yes.
And I am just absolutely disgusted to no end with what is going on and what's happening to America because of this infiltration. And I just would encourage everyone to not to forget to go and vote in November and vote for Mitt Romney, because he is going to be the one to turn this around. But the other thing is that it burns me up that Barack Obama is insisting on seeing more of Mitt Romney's tax returns, but yet he never, ever produced his real birth certificate. And you knew from the very beginning he was hiding something, and now we know what it was.
How about college records? How about Social Security number? How about...
Yes, all of it.
Oh, my.
Yes, and we Christians have got to stop just being rolling over and letting these things happen. We have rights, too, and our rights are being violated by all of these people saying they cannot say the name of Jesus, the crosses can't be on display, and all of the Ten Commandments, all of these things. We have got to come together as Christians and say enough is enough.
Let me just say this, that here in America, oftentimes people will equate, well, being a Christian means we have no output or no involvement in the community. Mm-hmm. But we happen to be blessed in a country that has, for hundreds of years now, had a representative government, which means we're not run by a monarch. We are run above the people, by the people, and for the people. Yes. And if we neglect our responsibility, why are we in America? If you don't want to function with the way it works, go back to your homeland somewhere.
I agree 100% with you.
Thank you so much for calling. Let's move right along to Ted, who's in Florida. And Ted, you're on the air.
Yes, I'd like to say that the idea that the Muslim Brotherhood is the problem at hand is nothing but a red herring. Anyone in the know would realize it's the Antichrist Zionist movement.
Well, sir, let me say this. I know you're a Jew hater, Ted, and so that you can do that, but we're not going to take and let you spew your hatred for Jewish people here on Crosstalk. Okay, you have a nice day. Let's go to Medford, Oregon, and talk with Marcus. And Marcus, you're on the air.
Oh, hello.
Yeah.
First of all, I wanted to talk about all this hate for the Muslims that's being spread throughout America.
Now, before we go there, what do you mean hate?
Well, a lot of people just really have bad things to say about Muslims, and for the most part, I mean, they could be right. But
let me ask you, and let's have dialogue, okay? You're saying that it's hate to disagree with Muslims.
Well, when you talk to a lot of people who claim to be Christians, whenever you talk about Muslims, there's this instant feeling of, just hate towards them, and that's not how it should be. If we want to really spread the word of Christ, then we have to do it through love and not, just beat them that way instead of going over there and going to war, which kind of ties into what I'm talking about, the suicide rate with the troops. Did you know that more troops now are on prescription drugs than ever before? And most of the prescription drugs that they actually, set people up on have not been tested the way they should be and actually screw the chemicals in your brain all up.
Okay, well, let me just say this, Marcus. First of all, you keep playing your radio and it interrupts the signal. But let me say this. Anytime you take away any spiritual influence through the chaplaincy, and you've got people who are despairing and they have no hope spiritually speaking, is there any wonder that these young people are coming to a place of despair?
Oh, no, absolutely not. I mean, if we were over there, Jesus goes with you wherever you go. You should be able to say and worship however you want. That's completely outrageous that they're doing that.
Well, I appreciate your comments, Marcus. And the issue, again, is we understand the reason why we're there. No, God hates war. All of us hate war. It's a terrible thing, but our nation has been attacked. We're facing a lot of crises coming up. And I want to thank you for your call, Marcus. Carl in Sydney, Ohio, I wish we could have had time for you, but our time is gone. I want to thank you for joining us on Crosstalk today. Invite a friend to listen. Tomorrow, same time, right here on the VCY America Radio Network and affiliates. Thanks for joining us.
You've been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Tape Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208, or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.